All right. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Great to be back for session number 2. We learned a lot from the last one. Hopefully, we'll keep getting better at this. And in terms of the format, we had a glitch last time with Zoom because we had a default of only 100 participants unknowingly. It got remedied last time, and we ended up with over 200 people. And then since then, we've gone to a slightly different format where it allows up to 500, and we're able to live stream in a way that we can just send that out to everybody too. So we think we've covered all those bases. Our apologies. I know there were many people who tried to get on last time and they were denied access. So our apologies. That should not happen again, but if it does, let us know. A reminder that we did record that last one, and I believe that is posted now and has been sent out. So if you missed the first one and want to suffer through that one, feel free to look at that. We're recording this one, and we will, it's both live streamed and we will be able to post it as well. And the process, I reviewed as many of the comments as I got up until end of day yesterday. And I try to just combine all the comments I receive into a few key areas to address. I'll probably take 5 or 10 minutes to get through. I won't answer them specifically as much as broadly about the kind of things people are asking. And then we're going to open up. And Leslie, will you remind me, we're allowing people to send a chat and you're tracking those questions and you'll ask them along the way, is that right?
Yeah, correct. So I'm keeping track of them as they come in.
Great. Okay.
Pam, on your end, if you can hear me, Raj says our volume went away, and so does May. Oh, now it came back. Okay, we're good. I think we're good. Keep going,
Okay.
Greg.
Great. Yeah, and so in terms of the chats, if you are having any kind of issue, it's great if you send us a message on that. But if you can hold off on sending specific questions, because I've already seen a couple on here that look like things I'm going to address. But also it's easier for Leslie to be able to track them and ask them as they're coming in going forward, and don't want to get too inundated over the next 10 minutes of me walking through everything. So people can hold off, unless you're sending a message to say, hey, the volume's not working and things like that. You want to know that right away. But if you can hold off on specific questions for just a little bit longer, that'd be great. You don't have to, but it would be helpful. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. I took care of all the bits and pieces of this. I should also say that we'll take a look at whether any questions I can't answer today, we can start doing an FAQ of some kind. So we're hoping that we're able to track the comments and do our best to actually answer all of them and then post those as well. So I have a whole set of comments and questions that came our way that really I won't address a lot. I'll kind of give you a sense of what they are. But these are the kind of things that have to be ultimately answered by principals and the teachers at the site, because schools do have some ability to create schedules and manners of instruction that are different at various sites. And so it's hard for me to answer specifically when somebody says that something is or is not happening at a particular site without me knowing what site that is and being able to follow up. So this is just my way of saying, please do your best when you do have questions to raise about especially around distance learning, that you go to the principal and or your child's teacher directly. If that's not working, I want to know about it. Please do send me an email. You don't have to wait for these weekly gatherings. Please let us know, because we're working hard to try to be on top of all of this, and it helps us to hear from you. So the first thing I want to say is a lot of people actually, I would say, of the comments I get are saying that there's just inconsistency of what, for some of you especially who have one child in one class and another child in another and very different grades, the experience is different in terms of the amount of direct instruction, amount of time that teachers are connecting with students, how much homework per se students are doing in some cases versus others. And again, that's something that I would like you to address with your principals, because they want to hear about that, especially if that's true at any one site. There is an expectation that teachers are having some sort of daily contact and instruction, and that work is being looked at, and that so the work students do, there's some form of getting feedback, that there are opportunities for students to reach out, or the teacher to reach out to students who might be struggling in any way or who have questions. So these are things that we're working on. A lot of you told me that in the beginning that wasn't happening, but now it is. And so really just depending on the class at what school and when you're talking about, these things are happening. What I want people to know is that, yes, we are expecting interaction of our teachers with students to the best of their ability. I'll also tell you there are some cases where it looks like barely half of the students of a particular class are showing up for those. So I hope parents, you can help out with that and help get your students in front of the screen at the time that it's appropriate. We have told teachers we don't want students sitting in front of the screen all day. We want to make sure they're getting out, getting exercise, appropriately distanced, and are doing activities away from the screen because we think that's important for them. So we will not be going toward a mode where the teacher is in front of a screen all day, teaching kids all day. That's just not, it's not a value. It's not the way distance learning works best. And so that if that's the expectation, we're not going to see that happen, but you should see a ramping up over the week after week in terms of the amount of both work and in some cases, I should say, so many of our teachers are doing amazing work. I've been staying connected with them, and they're doing excellent, outstanding work. And we do recognize that some teachers have very particularly difficult situations in terms of what they have to be doing at home and how much time they can give. And so we're trying to provide them that opportunity while everybody commits to ramping up as we move through this school year. I'm hoping you're noticing that ramp up. Looking at my notes, I know some of you parents have raised concerns about feeling that the way the instruction is going is that it's basically left to you to do the instruction, that there's very minimal amount of direction, and then the rest of the day is for you to do. Again, I hope you're seeing more of a ramp up there, although we do appreciate your involvement, because again, it's going to be very hard for the teachers to track every single student in every home, where each home has a different setup and a different situation going on. So your help is very much appreciated, but we don't want you struggling to know, well, what is it my child is supposed to be doing now, or not understanding direction, or not feeling that you can help in any way. And so there too, we ask you to reach out to the principal or teacher if you're experiencing that, and talk that through with them. We would appreciate that. I think those are the big picture responses I have. And I think my big takeaway is I want everyone to know that we do recognize that there are inconsistencies, and that we are trying to improve as we go along, and are definitely trying all we can to provide the right kind of experience for the students. We're aware of it, and we will be working on it. And I think the teachers are committed to that as well. Okay, another area here around just sort of the impact on enrollment and other critical areas that people ask quick questions about. I'll just highlight a few. People asked about the Citizens Advisory Committee on Enrollment that had started up and what's happening with that. As you know, we are taking a look at the potential need to reboundary the district in ways, or look at school closures and solve a huge budget problem that we have, which, by the way, has only gotten worse since this COVID-19 situation. We will take another huge hit on the budget. And so we do need to do the work of that CAC. But we are waiting we were supposed to already have had a couple of sessions by now, but we're going to wait and hopefully start in May virtually. At this time, though, we won't be able to complete that task until into next school year, obviously. So just be aware that we are still planning to move ahead, but we will delay it, and that will make a difference going into next year. But regardless, the board is clear that it expects us to have a recommendation in front of them for next year that will go into effect the following school year. And you'll learn more about that soon. Spring break, several parents have asked about why we're still doing spring break, given that we're moving, that we lost some time, if you will, obviously. And the bottom line is that we do have a negotiated work schedule for our teachers and employees, and many of them do have plans. And even though I doubt people are necessarily traveling at this moment in time, but they still do have other things going on in their lives, and it is a right that they have to have that time off. And so we are on spring break starting the week of the 13th. And so we will point you to more activities students can be doing on their own over that time. And hopefully you've been accessing that on our website. So just know that we'll do our best to provide ideas for you to have your students engage in and or to do with you as well. So please look for that. A lot of questions about math placement, and I know especially for sixth graders, fifth graders now, upcoming sixth graders for next year, there's a question about math placement. And we are working on that. I can't answer specifically exactly how we're going about it, but we know generically, generally speaking, we plan to continue with the same pathways. We will find a way to do the same kind of assessment that we need to do in order to make proper placement. All sixth graders do Common Core Math 6, regardless of who you are. And then there's an acceleration option for students who are able to do that. We will continue to do that. We haven't figured out exactly how we go about it, but we will do that, and we are figuring that out, and you'll hear from us soon on that. We need to be able to talk to the teachers about it, and that's been hard to do because they've been busy trying to figure out how to teach remotely. So stay tuned. We know that that's a question for people, and we will be taking care of that. There are a lot of comments about feeling bad that eighth graders in particular, but others, that there's no end of year kind of fun activity. And so we're going to look at that, and we'll see where we are. Maybe there are ways we can do something fun, if even remotely, but we recognize that that's not, that doesn't feel good to people, and especially to those eighth graders, and we recognize that. I guess a big takeaway for me that I heard from a few people is like, what are we going to do with lost time, if we can call it that? That the reality is that this pandemic has forced us into an unprecedented moment that we just, we are all doing the best that we can. And we do have to pay attention to students who there may be a gap between what we wanted them to have in terms of skills and other areas by, by next school year. And we cannot just stick our heads in the sand and pretend that that isn't true, because it is true. And so our staff, we will be looking at how do we plan for that. And we do need to use the rest of this school year to do that planning so that come August, we have ways of addressing this question of gaps in students' learning that could affect them going forward. And then we'll put together plans for next school year around that. I cannot answer that specifically at this time, but it is something we have to do. And I'll close on this by saying that I liked a comment made by somebody saying that could we maybe have a task force of staff and to include some community input around preparing for August. What will that look like? And so I talked with our assistant superintendent for educational services, and we'll be talking about that going forward. Only other one, just sort of a random one, is one of the parents noted that iReady is being used in a lot of the distance learning classrooms, and that there are some really good analytics on there that help the teachers see how students are doing and then adapt learning going forward. And the question was around whether parents and students can't see those as well. So one way or the other, having feedback that parents and teachers, and students can access is going to be important, because we do rely on our parents to be helping in this process right now. So we're going to take a look at that, whether it's iReady or other forms, but that idea of assessing what students are learning and what they're not learning, and how we can then adapt instruction around that. That's a big one. It's not a quick turnaround, but we'll be working on that over this year as well. And I think those were the big picture kind of comments that were made. So Leslie, what do you think?
Yeah, and actually a lot of the questions that were coming in when you were talking, you answered. A couple things that came up, you touched upon this, but a question from two parents on whether or not we'd ever consider as a district to start the school year earlier. And I think you really touched on that, but any other comments for that?
In terms of starting earlier, it will be interesting to see what we learn from the state. And the reality is some of that will depend on finances. And if the state decides, and they may, that there are ways for districts to start early and they will fund that, it is definitely something we would consider. Again, it would have to be in negotiation with our staffs in their various associations, because we don't unilaterally just say, even though your contract says that these are your dates of work, that we're changing it. But we would work with people on that idea, and it could be that an optional thing for some people. But again, I do need the community to understand that we were already in a terrible, terrible budget situation. We did not pass the parcel tax. That's another $4.3 million gone. We have a parcel tax now that is up for renewal, and if people are anti-parcel tax right now, we may not get that one. So that's another loss of $8.5 million, and we were already about $20 million shy of where we need to be. So we are not in great shape, and then all of a sudden we get hit with this pandemic, which is going to cost us even more. So I just have to be upfront and honest with people that the idea of if the cost is on us to start schools, that's millions of dollars just to do 1 week of school. And so we'll take a look at it and work with the state. I know that our County Office of Education is looking into this as well. So we'll see where we land. And it is a possibility, but I would not count on it at this time.
Another thing that came up from a few parents was in regards to social emotional learning. And I know we've got the teachers are putting stuff out. Our district website has a lot of different resources, but just the importance for, and I know Allison is listening, but the importance for our staff to be aware of that need for our kids, to be able to provide them with hope, to maybe assign books that they can read that will enrich their minds, and then being sensitive to the current events that are happening. And so I think, that could certainly be a conversation that we continue with our principals. I know it's on their minds, certainly.
Okay, is that, Allison, do you want to say anything to that? I have a very loud truck going by my house right now, so I'm going to mute for a second, but I wonder if our Assistant Superintendent, Allison Lear, might want to chime in.
Great.
Hi, everybody. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. The focus on wellness and social emotional learning has been a part of all of our principal meetings. Since distance learning started and even before, it's been a regular topic. We've been pulling in as many resources as we can to support sites in that journey, and we have posted some material on the district site for how to talk to your kids about what's happening in the world. In addition, I've been connecting with our librarians, and they also have been thinking about how to put together book lists for the kids, so I appreciate that suggestion, and I some of that information posted on the hubs. We absolutely recognize that what's going on in the larger world is impacting the kids, and also the kids really miss their friends and that sense of connection. So we've been having a strong focus on thinking about creative ways for the kids to still feel connected with their school sites and with each other, and that will remain a focus of our work. So if you're not feeling that from your school, definitely please do reach out to the teachers and the principal, because it's definitely something that we're committed to focusing on.
Okay. Allison, you may want to stay online for a minute. There's a couple others. Question from 5th grade parents in regards to human growth and development. If human growth and development had not happened at the school site, what is our thinking about that as we reopen next year?
Right, so that conversation has been in process, and we haven't yet sent out our parent communication about it, but one of the things that we're talking about is that we know that it's a really sensitive topic for kids and families, and it doesn't feel like something that we can provide in the distance learning model, because we have, sometimes little brothers and sisters passing by during the time of instruction, and it's just difficult to create that sense of the trusted adult and comfortable conversation for that type of a topic. But we do know that many parents want their kids to learn about puberty in 5th grade, and so we're brainstorming what kinds of resources and opportunities might we be able to provide. So more to come on that soon, and I'm so sorry that we're not able to do it in the way that we wanted to, but we're going to figure out what resources we can provide.
Allison? So I do see there's continued comment on the chat about, my child basically gets a 15 to 30 minute something maybe in the morning. The rest of the day it's up to parents to do work with their kids, and that's, why not more? And I know I addressed that, but because it just keeps coming up, and that we're saying that, in fact, the expectation is there is more than that. But first of all, it's different depending on what grade you're talking about. And then, can you talk about that a little? Because you and I have talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that we've been talking quite a bit about in our meetings with the principals, this sense that we know that families and students need to have a routine to follow during distance learning. We know that this is important when kids are in the classroom, and it's also important during distance learning time. That sense of what to expect and a flow of the day. And so definitely it's an expectation that schools are able to express what that daily routine should look like for kids. And as Dr. Baker mentioned before, we know it will not be 100% online screen time for an entire school day. But we've been talking about ways to have kind of that ebb and flow of learning time and practice time and break time, and helping parents to set up that structure for their kids, and making sure that teachers and principals are ready to communicate that expectation and support parents in figuring out how to navigate this, while knowing also that every family situation is unique, and we have to have a balance of together time and time when that's more flexible, because sometimes not every student's able to join the learning in the same moment because of things that are happening in households. So we're trying to navigate that balance so that all kids can access the learning time and all kids can have a sense of routine and connection to their class.
A question about PE, and it was interesting because some individuals are saying they need some more direction from teachers in regards to PE and accountability for actually doing the activities assigned. Yet others are saying, hey, you should talk with your principal or your teacher because it's going perfectly at our school site. Do you want to comment a little bit on what Laurel and the PE team has been working on? Because I believe I think our PE teachers have lessons at the elementary school level accessible to all kids, but maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Right. I was watching those PE, sure if they were elementary or middle, and I haven't been able to read the chat while I was just talking. So I'll just start with elementary. Yes, definitely. We have weekly lessons that are ready to go for the kids in PE, and our PE teachers have been working really hard to share all of their good work with all of the grade levels. So if you have an issue there, definitely reach out to your principal. I saw that somebody wrote she was trying to reach out to the PE teacher and didn't hear anything. So in those cases, definitely reach out to your principal. We definitely want the kids to have physical activity and be active during this time. We know it's really critical to their overall health and wellness, and our teachers are working hard to offer that. So if there's something not working well for your family, reach out so that we can provide help for you.
There's one, Craig, that I think I will answer. It's in regards to our open enrollment lottery. Someone was wondering what's happening with that. Because of our slowdown at the district office, we are running the lottery a little bit later than expected. We sent out a message. If you applied for open enrollment, you should have gotten a message yesterday. But we are doing the lottery this week, and families will start, if you end up getting a space at an alternative school, I'm looking at my calendar, that's why I keep veering off, you will get notification via email next week. And then by the end of the day on the 20th, if you did not get offered a spot at an alternative school or at a neighborhood school, you'll have access to see where you are on a wait list, an online wait list. So it's about a week later than we had expected. Another question that came up was regarding how are we going to handle missed assessments. You talked, Craig, already about math placement for 6th grade, but missed assessments like CASP, and what's the thinking around how students are going to be graded during this online learning time?
Well, I'll tag team this with Allison again. First of all, yeah, CASP has been canceled for the year, and so that simply ends up not being a summative assessment for us, and we will look at other ways of assessing students along the way. And I spoke to the analytics that we have associated with various different programs that we can use going forward. But no, it is clear that we will need to have other ways of assessing where students are at the end of the year and what will, how we will apply those. In terms of grades, you know, at this point, you know, the push all the way from universities down to high schools, down to middle and then to elementary is to not worry about the grades, that those will not have an impact on even at the high school level, what college you get into, or you know, in middle school going to high school. There is no concern. We've been working with the high school about that, that a credit, no credit, you know, completion kind of assessing is what will make it, is what will matter, and we will have something in place for that. So I just don't want people worrying about it. People are not going to be harmed in any way relative to having more of a completion, progress made, and you know, passing or, you know, getting credit versus not having done the work, etc. Everyone recognizes this is a short period in time, and it is not going to be something that has a major impact. That said, we are going to work on those assessments. We will be getting back to parents with how we are providing feedback to them on how their child is doing in this era of distance learning. And so all of that is in the works. We don't have the full answer right now, but I do want people to recognize that all levels of education, from early education all the way up into the universities, is in agreement about this strategy. Allison, would you like to add anything?
No, I think you captured it all, and we'll continue to provide updates as we work with the teachers and principals on clarifying how we're going to move forward. We're in those conversations now, and we'll continue to keep people updated as we go along.
Thanks. Hey, Leslie, I want to just take a minute to read this message from one of our participants, Yi Zhao. And I just have to read it again because I hear that this is the thing in terms of concern we hear. And I just want to acknowledge it. We've talked about it today, more than one of us, and I recognize it, saying I feel very frustrated that I have to teach and monitor my 3 kids' study and be their all subject teachers. Please help the parents. Teachers, can you have one live Google Meet every day, just as your regular school session? Even their after-school teachers can do 2 hours live instruction every afternoon, 3:30 to 5:30. Public teachers are not expected to give instructions online, ? So I hear that frustration. I hear it from a lot of parents. And the problem we're having is that in some of these cases, that might be happening in your case. And so I do say, if you've not connected with the principal at your school, it gets, and I don't know which school you're in, and I can't remedy that. But the reality is, it isn't supposed to be 30 minutes walk away and there's no other guidance or help, etc. So I implore people who are having that experience, because, by the way, I get so many email daily that says the exact opposite, how pleased they are at how much they're getting. Their kids are doing just great, and it's such a great balance of academic and social emotional learning, etc. And so we are not consistent, and we need to become more and more consistent, but I can't get us there unless you also take time to reach out to the principal at your school site to share that frustration, which, by the way, we are doing. We share these comments with them and ask them and say, is this your parent by chance? Because this is something you need to address. So I encourage that, and believe me, we hear that frustration. And hopefully you will see that getting better, because we're committed to that. So.
Yeah, and Craig, I would agree. That's many of the comments, and then there's others that are sort of sprinkled within that are saying it's working perfectly for my kid and for my students. Allison, back to the PE question, and I think we really we've discussed this, but It was middle school PE, where one school, it seems perfect at the middle school, another school, there's a challenge. And so I would just reiterate, if at your school, your middle school PE teacher is not assigning things and not making contact, first reach out to them. And then if that is not successful, reach out to the principal or the assistant principal at the middle school. Anything to add? I'm sorry.
Allison, were you going to respond to that or no?
Just agreeing with what Leslie was saying. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. The other one has to do with students with special needs. There were a couple comments about probably parents that have students with special needs and feeling like they're a little bit more lost or need additional support, or maybe some of those services haven't started to be provided yet, and so where we are with that.
Right. So I'm hoping that if you feel like your child's not getting what they need, that you're reaching out to your case manager. And if you don't know who the case manager is, then reach out to the principal so that we can help you with that. We are still holding our IEPs remotely, and our teachers are gearing up to provide supports to the maximum extent that they can. There are some challenges, and so we're trying to work through that and support every family and making sure that what we're doing is meeting the needs of the kids to the best possible degree in this new. So definitely our special education teachers are meeting with the director regularly, and our principals are focused on this as well. So if you are not getting what you need and your child has an IEP, please do reach out to that case manager or the principal.
There was a comment for us to consider, and it sounds like Fremont Union High School District may be doing something like this, but for us to consider parent training. Is there a way that we can provide any type of parent training to give parents tips and tricks on how to best support their kids at home? What I can certainly do is I can reach out to Fremont and find out, what are they doing as they are partners with us, but it might just be something that we want to consider as we're doing this for the next month or so.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Yeah, we can do a special session just on that. That'd be great.
Yeah. There was a question about budget and how this COVID-19 and school closure, can you comment a little bit more on how that affects our budget?
Hopefully, at least from the state, we're going to be okay in terms of enrollment related. So, and of course, that's how we get most of our money. So I think we're going to be okay in that realm. But there are just so many different areas. I can't even capture them all. Contracts that we have that don't necessarily get forgiven. Money collected for going to Yosemite or other field trips that are not being fully refunded, which in a district like ours is a lot of money. We have millions of dollars invested in those kinds of contracts and field trips and things like that, that at this point, we don't know that they will get refunded. And for a lot of our parents, they are due a refund. And so it's just all sorts of things like that. Now, again, it's not about the ongoing dollar that we receive on a per student basis. The state will find a way to forgive that. And supposedly the federal government will help us out in some ways. But the idea that we will be made whole, completely whole, it's just not, it's not reasonable. And we will be taking a hit. And that even goes to our lessees who will not necessarily be renting from us, and we bring in millions of dollars a year on that sort of revenue as well. So there are many, many different ways that we think we will be hit, and we are busily trying to assess that and make plans for it.
There's a number of comments. It goes back to sort of the teaching and learning, the daily teaching and learning, and the need for consistency, seeing that it's going well at some schools per a parent perspective, and other schools parents are challenged, that there's a hope from quite a few people that there is more direct messaging from the district in regards to consistency at all schools, which we're working on, I know, but I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit more or reiterate something you had said earlier in regards to that.
Can you paraphrase that again? I didn't get all of it.
Yeah, it's in regards to consistencies. The question is, for example, why are there so many inconsistencies across the schools? Is there a district level guideline for all schools that would make it easier for parents to understand what is expected? Because there seems to be some inconsistencies from school to school or teacher to teacher.
Okay, so I'll try to address that, and I probably need Allison to speak to some of it. But one of the things I hope people understand is that we are, first of all, teachers do get guidance, but we also rely on their professional judgment. And they need to be able to learn along the way and then adjust along with their colleagues at the various grades at their own schools, but also across the district. And over time, we will have, and over time, I mean over the next couple of weeks, not a long time, we'll have a lot more similarity to what is expected and what we are learning is working with students versus what is not. This is so new to us, to our teachers, to be teaching in this manner. It's not like being in the classroom. If you're used to teaching virtually and you run online learning, instruction, et cetera, that's a different thing because you built your entire curriculum on that, which usually takes years to build. We are, I just need to be honest, we are learning along the way. Teachers are doing an amazing job trying to figure this out, and they are not all at the same place. But in terms of guidance, yes, the district has made it clear, there will be daily interaction. Students will do work and they will receive feedback on that work. We're not dictating an exact number of minutes because we don't want them just passing time and minutes. It's doing, figuring out how do you do the same kind of powerful instruction to the degree you can, figuring that out and providing that learning experience for kids. And so again, a lot of the teachers are figuring that out and now they're sharing that with others. So you're starting to see new teachers who weren't necessarily a week ago doing that, starting to do that. And I believe you will keep seeing that ramp up. But for people who have the impression that it's okay to just assign something, do a 15-minute check-in, assign something, and you're done, that's not, people are clear that's not what we do. We need to provide more, and we will. And therefore, please talk with the principal or talk with the teacher directly and ask about that. If that's not working, talk to the principal. And if not that, then please send me an email. I will follow up directly on that. But I can't deal with it generically because I get so many comments from other parents saying, it's amazing, look how great this is. And they share with me, this is what my kid did today, this was so good. So it is inconsistent. And we will bring consistency to it. We're getting there, getting more and more consistency, but let's deal with the ones where that's not happening. We need to deal with those one at a time, each one. Allison, did you have anything to add to that?
Just that I'm hoping that everyone is using the School Learning Hub as a place to get a sense of what the school is working on. I saw somebody pointed this out in the comments, and I just want to be sure everybody knows that we have those learning hubs posted on the district website. It's the place where principals and teachers are communicating about where to find information, schedules, resources, messages. There's really a lot of rich information there, and our teachers and principals have been working hard to update that. It's still new, but we're working on it every week and trying to make sure that you have kind of that one-stop shop to find the information that you need. So I'm hoping that if you take a look at that, you might find that there are some things there that can be supportive for you, and you'll know that that's the place where we're communicating our enhancements as we go through. We are, as Dr. Baker said, this is a time of calibration for our teachers and our principals. We're meeting regularly to provide guidance and support our principals in leading their staffs. And I think we're making a lot of excellent progress. Our teachers are working so hard, and we're seeing a lot of great collaborative spirit and innovation, and they're really committed to making sure that kids are getting what they need. So just reiterating again, if you're not getting that from your school, reach out to your teacher and or your principal.
Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge I'm trying to skim through all these chat things. We can't possibly keep up with them, but I do appreciate all the parents who are giving kudos to their children's teachers for all the work they're getting and the kind of work, et cetera, which I know only leads to more frustration for the parents who aren't feeling that, right? So I get that, and this is something that we need to continue working on, and we will continue to work on that.
Right. And then one of the questions that came up had to do with professional development for our teachers. And what I can say, and Allison may want to add to it, is that our principals are coaching and sitting in on grade level meetings and coaching them through and helping teachers that may be less comfortable with technology to get more comfortable. Our Ed Services team has seminars that they've been hosting ever since we went on this school closure and distance learning or learning remotely. And so there's a lot of things that are going on to support our teachers. And then we've got coaches assigned to support teachers also one-on-one that need it. And then it's learning from each other. There was a comment about one of the teachers at Miller, and maybe folks can work with him because he's doing such an amazing job at digital learning with his kids. So Allison, do you want to add to that, or is that sufficient?
Yeah, I echo everything that you're saying. We have lots of supports available for teachers. I know they're working really hard, and I'm seeing in the chat that people want to know that yes, there is an expectation that teaching is happening. So I just want to reassure everyone that that is an expectation, and that we're working hard to make that true for every student. It is a challenge to switch to distance learning. As Dr. Baker mentioned, kids in these ages don't learn primarily through a lecture format. We know that about their development, and so we're trying to work together to figure out the strategies and tools that we can use to make the learning meaningful and engaging for the kids, and that's what we're focused on. So please do keep in contact with your teacher and ask if you're not getting what you need.
And then another comment that comes up has to do with just that need for kids to be not necessarily even in a learning situation, but to be able to connect with their friends. And so if you do look at the chat parents, some have shared some of the things that are just happening outside of the classroom structure. So for example, at Stevens Creek, some of the teachers are organizing some Google Hangouts. I'm sorry, some of the parents are organizing Google Hangouts just socially. And that's something that PTAs can help with, that are separate from the teaching and learning that goes on from teachers. But that social time is important. No, I feel like I've sort of caught up. I'm not sure if there's anything, team, that you think I have missed in the chat. Oh, Craig, you're muted. Oh.
Sorry. No, I was just laughing a little bit because we are so far not caught up, because I love how much interaction is going on this chat. There's really a lot of conversation that we just aren't able to keep up with, I think, which is fine. But is there anything in here that we really need to address right now? I know, and anybody, Stacy or Allison, anybody see anything that really should be addressed? I mean, they all should be addressed, obviously.
Based on the notes that I'm keeping, I think we've covered, and we haven't done one by one, but I think we've covered the general essence of the conversation.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
So if we're at the bottom of it, maybe if before we sign off, if any of you out there wants to get in one question, or you saw one that we didn't address and you want us to go ahead and put it, and we'll go to the bottom. We're only going to have, what, 8 minutes, I think, here? Something like that. So let's see what we can get in.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would suggest is, as these questions are coming in, potentially people may be signed on a little bit later, and some of them have been answered. I will reiterate in regards to the open enrollment lottery that we will run the lottery this week. families that received a space at an alternative school. And that's primarily kindergarten, to be honest with you. That's where we have our openings for alternative schools. We'll begin contacting families the week of April 13th. We try to contact you in multiple ways. And then wait lists will be electronic and available at the end of the day on April 20th. So we're just asking for patience on that. It's about a week later than we had expected. And if you have questions about that, you can email student assignment or me, and that's managed through my office. The other thing is there's lots of comments about, thank you teachers, thank you West Valley teachers, thank you Regnart teachers, thank you Mr. Dunlap, that we do have, across our district, our teachers are working tirelessly to support their students and to learn, and try new things. So we appreciate everything you're doing, staff.
Leslie, there have been throughout this more questions about grading and students getting grading and what's the incentive if you don't get a grade and things like that. I hear the questions, and this is something that we are working on with teachers and principals, all of us. So I get it. I hear what you're saying, and we will take that into account. I will say that, and I can't get into this enough in this forum right now, but students do gain a lot by having good feedback. And at the end of the day, a letter grade, while it may provide some incentive in ways, it really doesn't compare to a teacher giving comments about what a child knows and doesn't know and needs to learn and what they're struggling with. And actually a grade doesn't tell you that. And so I understand the value of the grade and why we use them. And so I'm not suggesting we don't give grades, but in terms of a child's progress and assessing that progress and giving feedback, I know for my own children, whenever I got a report card for my children, I went right to the teacher comments. I didn't even look at the grades. I was always way more interested in, do you know my child? Can you tell me what he, she needs and help me understand where my child is? That expectation will remain, and that we will be able to provide in some form or another. And the only value then of a credit, no credit really is, at least us being able to pass along that, yes, your child has, done sufficient work. But you are right to say, but that doesn't incentivize somebody to learn. Our hope is that learning is incentivized by way more than a letter grade. It is the bottom line. And we do expect children to get feedback, that teachers will see where they're learning and where they are not, and where there are gaps, that they will fill those gaps. Those are the things that do matter the most. In the meantime, please know we are looking at this issue, and we will get back to you on what the plan is around report cards, progress report, grades, all of that.
And then the only thing I would add, some of you who joined late, this has been recorded and on the district homepage. Probably by the end of the day, the entire live recording will be available, as well as the one from last week. So if we didn't get to your question because it came in late, it was probably addressed earlier. And so I encourage you to listen to the whole recording, and then certainly reach out to your school, your teachers, or Craig or myself if you have questions that were not answered.
Right. Let me check in real quick. Stacy, I don't know if you had any thoughts throughout all this, or anything, comments you wanted to make before we leave, or Allison, anything else? I don't see any other panelists here. Or are we good?
I think we may have addressed this earlier, but I think it's just important to reiterate. I saw some comments about how will we close the year for 8th graders, and I just want you to know that we're talking about that. We'll be involving kids in that thinking as well, and we know we need to be sure they have a memory and a positive closure. And we don't yet know what our plan will be, but it's on our minds as a top priority for discussion. So I hear you parents who are wondering about that, and I feel for you. I myself have a high school senior, so I really connect to that feeling, and I want you to know that we're working on it.
And I think I would just chime in and add is that, you know, your comments are all really appreciated. I think from the compliments to the, you know, what's missing out there, because that really does help us continue to work with our staff, because I know that our staff want to do what's best for kids. They're struggling working through their own family life as well. But I think we are continuing to find that balance, and we're ready to continue that next phase and ramp things up. So we appreciate the talks.
All right. Well, thank you everybody who joined us today. We really, really appreciate it. I see that Leslie graciously put my email down for everybody to write. So please do use that. I do.
Put all of them.
I do enjoy hearing from you. And so I think with that, we're going to sign off. Is that right, Leslie?
Yeah, and actually I did put, if you have questions about teaching and learning, I did put Allison's email. Student assignment, Craig, you're off the hook for everything, for these.
All right.
Student assignment questions, you would address them to me, Leslie Maines. Human Resources is Stacy McAfee. So we certainly, you know, would be happy to talk offline with individuals that have additional questions or comments to make. So thank you.
All right. Again, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you joining us, and we will see you again soon.